In this presentation, we are going to discuss the key foundations. These are the key pieces of the puzzle that are needed so that you can start to really build that enhanced learning experience. To begin, let's take a look at this slide. It helps to show the overall learning process. In state A, this is before the learner has learned anything, and when asked to perform, he or she really at this point can't perform. They just can't do it. Okay. However, after some experience, the learner progresses to state B and then can perform correctly when asked or cued to do so. In the case of state B, we say that the learner has actually learned. Right? State B is where we want our learners to be, so we need to be able to really describe what state B is like. It helps in a number of ways if we can successfully do that. A description of state B allows our learners to know what they must be doing in order, to show that learning has occurred. It tells them when they've actually arrived. And also from a designer's perspective, that description of state B tells us what the learner should be doing to signify that learning has occurred. So it helps both from the learner's perspective and also from the designer's perspective. Finally, with that description, we are able to identify the gap between what needs to be done, so that what needs to happen so that state B can be acquired, from our current state of state A. And that allows the teacher to begin to determine what needs to be done to fill that gap between A and B. Or in this case, what needs to be within this Experience 101, or the learning experience, the enhanced learning experience that you're going to work on. It's just critical to know as much about the learner in state A as possible. We need to know the learner's starting position. And you can't build effective, efficient, Experience 101s without knowing where your learners are, and also then, most importantly, where they need to be and where that stopping point is. In order to determine the current state of your learners, here are some key questions that you should pay close attention to, and you're actually going to use these. So the first one here is, what are the general characteristics of the target audience? And then, how do those characteristics influence learning in this experience? And does the learner characteristic diversity need to be addressed in some way? Now, these are pretty general questions, but they are used to get you thinking about what more specific things could be asked. Remember, you want to identify the starting position where your learners are now, that state A, if you will. In some cases, the characteristics may or may not have an impact on overall learning, but you need to know up front so that you can address those things that will cause your wonderful learning experience to fail miserably if you don't take them into account. Can you imagine the problems you will have if you design the perfect learning experience only to find out later that your learners, they can't read, or they don't speak the language that you've been using, or they don't have the needed background to comprehend your stories or your analogies, and on and on. You need to identify these things because they will have a less than helpful impact if you don't pay attention to them. Likewise, here in state B, there's some very important questions that you should also think about. The first question is absolutely critical. Spend time on this and really think about it. Here is where you need access to basically a lot of different verbs. These are words that will help you describe what it is that the learner should be doing. Take a look in your text and other places. We've provided a long list of these type of verbs which should help you to be able to write these things. So you start by thinking along the lines of the learner will be able to, and then you put that word in there, and then add a description of the behavior. So the learner will be able to solve quadratic equations, or be able to write a poem, or to be able to climb, or to jump, or to run, and so on. Those are the verbs that you can use to help describe what this behavior should be. The other two questions deal with the situation. When the learning will actually occur. Will anything be provided to the learners in order for them to perform? What will the learner be given in order so that they can perform? And you need to put that down. All right. And then the final question has to deal with the quality of the performance. And you take a look at that. What is the quality of performance that will be required? How well does the learner actually have to perform? In some cases, this is left off as certain levels are assumed, but in most cases, it is needed to be stated. So if you look at the three major components of a well-written objective, you will have these things. All right, the performance, which is what students must do to be able to learn, and then the conditions, and those are the circumstances under which the learners must perform, the things they will have to use or to perform with. Right? And then finally some level of criteria. How, what is the standard of acceptable performance? How high should they jump? How fast should they run? Or what should they write? And the quality of the work that they're doing. So here's a practical example. And it's very basic, but it helps illustrate the three parts. So what is the performance? I'm hoping that you immediately identified. Take a look at that for a second, but I hope that you immediately identified that it is as students, what are the students going to do? The students will write the names of all the states. So as you look at that, there's the verb sitting right there. They're going to write the names of all the states within there. So that's the performance that will go on. All right? And then also you need to look and see what are the conditions with which the students will perform with. Well, in this case, the condition talks about they will have as access, they will have some type of map. All right? And then likewise, the overall criteria deals with set at a certain level. In this case is 100%. So from the view of the student, if he's given this objective, he or she would know that they would be given a map, and on that map he or she would be expected to write all the names of the states, and they would need to be done with perfect accuracy if they wanted to show that they've actually attained state B. All right? Note that the three key components of the objective are found, within this example. Now here's another example. So take a second and read through it. It's a little bit different. Now what should the learner be able to do? What is the performance? And here we talk about determining if a two-way can be converted into a three-way switch, if you can understand that. Right? If you're an electrical engineer, it would make perfect sense to you what is being asked there. What would the learner expect to have when asked to perform? And so there's going to be some type of diagram of an existing two-way switch for a dining room. But then what is the criteria? Nothing is actually listed here, but it's pretty clear that they can either do it or they can't do it, so it's a yes or no type of thing. They get it right or they don't. All right, so the criteria is that they will get that correct. All right, so 100% has to be assumed here. Here's a common problem that I don't want you to fall into this trap. All right? Note that this is a non-example. This is not a good example of an objective, even though it has a condition and a performance and a criteria. But why isn't it a valid learning objective? To be effective, you've got to have more information than what is stated here. Learning objectives need to list or highlight an actual performance that the learner will be doing that indicates the actual learning behavior that was desired. So in this case, you need to go to a different level by asking, what is the learner being tested on? What exactly is the learner to be doing to show that he or she has acquired this skill or this knowledge? Once you have the performance identified, then you can be more readily, you can more readily begin to determine under what conditions that the performance will be required. Likewise, based upon the performance and what is being done by the learner, then you can determine the quality at what the level of criteria that should be set. And as you can tell, in most cases, identifying the performance is the key to the learning objective. So in conclusion, what does the designer need to know? Where we are in state A and what state B looks like. Those are the basic building blocks for the enhanced learning experience. You need to know that and understand that really well, or your learning experience will never be developed to the effective level that you need it to be. All right, bye for now.